Good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with our program this morning. Coffee with the board, I think, is still wrapping up, but to be respectful to your time and to everyone's time here, we'll go ahead and get rolling. So I'm Aaron Howe. I'm with the Village of Hoffman Estates. I'm liaison to the Sustainability Commission as well. So the Village of Hoffman Estates, the Village Board, the Mayor, Sustainability Commission, we're all happy that you guys can join us this morning. Citizens Utility Board handles the content for this event, and so I'm not the expert, but I'm happy to have Marina here with us this morning to share this information with you. So I'll go ahead and let Marina have the floor. Thank you.
Wonderful. Hi, everyone. Happy almost Earth Day. Thanks for being here today. Again, my name is Marina Minnick, and I am the Solar Programs Coordinator at Citizens Utility Board. So today we're going to be going over, I guess I'll go to the agenda here. So today we're going to really focus on solar. I'll start by talking about CUB a little bit, and then we'll go into the benefits of solar and how it works, and we will get into the financial incentives to go solar, and we'll go through some of your options for going solar as well. So lots of solar. Since it's a smaller crowd for now, if you do have any questions, kind of clarifying questions throughout the presentation, feel free to raise your hand and I can get that answered for you. But we should also have a good amount of time at the end for questions as well. So before we get into solar, I love talking about CUB, or Citizens Utility Board. So we are a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that focuses on consumer protections for ratepayers. So if you pay a gas or electric bill, we have teams of people working to increase protections and keep rates from going up. We also really advocate for clean and affordable energy policies here in Illinois. Some of our other resources, we have a wonderful hotline team that operates Mondays through Thursday, 9 to 5. So if you give them a call, their number is on the screen, and I also have little blue brochures on the resource table. We have our number there. You can always give us a call. So if you have general questions about your bills, if you see something that raises an alarm or you have a concern, you can give us a call, and our team can typically help escalate complaints with the utilities as well. So it's definitely a really great resource to take advantage of. And then our website is great too. It is citizensutilityboard.org. There we have dozens of guides and fact sheets all about energy and clean energy related topics. So I think I could spend hours on our website, and every time I look, I find something new. So definitely worth looking into. And then I am on our outreach team. So there are about 6 of us, and we travel the state as best we can to talk to people about all sorts of topics, again, mostly related to gas and electric. And then I specifically focus on solar. So that's, again, what we'll be talking about today. One other thing that we do when we go out into communities is called a utility bill clinic, and that is an event that actually allows people to come in with their physical utility bills in hand and sit down with a CUB staff member, and we go through the bill with you and let you know what types of things we look out for. And then at the end, we try to recommend programs or different ways that you can reduce energy and save some money on those bills. So we have a calendar on our website. You can check to see if we'll be in the area soon with the utility bill clinic. Otherwise, you can always reach out to us either at ubc@citizensutilityboard.org, or you can just give us a call and ask to schedule an appointment, and we can do it virtually. So that's a nice resource as well. So that is CUB, and now we can get into solar. So first, I would love to talk about the benefits of solar. There are all kinds of benefits that range from environment, health, to jobs and savings. So the first one that I think a lot of us are thinking about, especially around Earth Day, is the environmental benefits. So currently, we do get a lot of our power by burning fossil fuels, and when we burn fossil fuels, we are emitting carbon dioxide into our atmosphere, which works to cause and accelerate climate change. Don't have time to talk about why climate change is bad, so hopefully we can all agree on that. When we install more renewables, we are able to move away from burning fossil fuels to getting our powers from renewables, and those do not emit carbon dioxide into our atmosphere. So you're really helping the environment by switching to solar or other renewables. Health is another one. So when we burn fossil fuels, not only are we emitting CO2, but we are emitting a lot of other harmful chemicals like nitrous oxides, sulfur dioxide, and particulate matter emissions. This is really harmful for our health. It's bad for the air and the water and the animals. So again, by switching away from that and toward renewables, you are really doing your part for creating a healthier planet. Next one is jobs. There will be a lot of opportunity in the green workforce, and Illinois is using a lot of their resources to try to create job training hubs throughout the state that will provide high quality training that will lead to high quality jobs. So that's something to look forward to. And then finally, savings. Solar, it's really good time to go solar because of the financial incentives, and solar also leads to monthly savings on our electric bills. So, CUB is actually a consumer protections organization. We are not necessarily an environmental organization, but encouraging people to look into solar benefits and take advantage of those benefits is good for the consumer. So that's really why we advocate for these things. So solar basics, one of the first questions I get is, do we get enough sun in Illinois for solar to make sense? Short answer is yes. So on the screen I have what we call a solar irradiance map, and it just shows how much sun different parts of the country gets. So it may seem a little obvious. The red is in the Southwest, so Arizona, Nevada, Southern California, where we think of having, those are the sunny states, and they do get the most sun. And then the blue and purple areas are where we get less sun. So Pacific Northwest, like Seattle, and then also Alaska are quite blue and purple. And then Germany is also on the screen. It's very blue and purple as well, and Germany actually has the highest solar capacity per capita in the entire world, and they have a lot of ambitious climate goals to go along with that. So I like to say, if Germany can do all of that with their amount of sun, Illinois can definitely implement solar in a meaningful way. We're right there in the middle in that green color. So next, how does solar work and what are the important components? So of course, one of the most important components of a solar system is the solar panels themselves. So we can start at step 1 up on the top left side of the screen. So it's really important for sun to shine down on the panels because what panels are doing is capturing energy from the sun, and number 2, they are converting the energy from the sun into electricity. So solar panels actually create DC power or direct current power, which is not what we use in our homes or on the grid. We actually use AC power or alternating current. So we get to step number 3 down at the bottom, and that DC power needs to go through something called an inverter. And the inverter will take that DC power and convert it into AC power. The inverter is also known as the brain of the solar system. It does all of the production and efficiency tracking. So most of the time when you go solar, your inverter will come with an app, or you can go to a website on your computer and you can really see a lot of time panel by panel how much electricity your system is producing. So that's pretty cool. So once you have your AC power, your home can use that electricity, it can power all of your needs, and any excess electricity you may have will first be tracked by your meter and then be sent back to the utility grid, where you will later be credited for that electricity. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but that's kind of the flow. We need the energy from the sun, we need to convert the DC to AC, and then the home has to use the power. So a lot of people also wonder, once I have solar, can I withstand any power outages? Am I good to go? So yes and no. When you have solar, you will typically still be connected to your utility grid. So if the power goes out, your power would also go down and your solar panels would shut off. That is a code implemented in order to protect linesmen who may be doing repairs on the grid. But if you have a battery, you are able to avoid that. So some people will get a backup battery with a transfer switch. So if the power goes down, you can switch over to your battery and power some of your needs with the battery. And I would say batteries are still a bit expensive, but the cost has definitely come down a lot since they first came to the market. So if you are interested in getting one, it may be the right decision for you, especially if you live somewhere where you do experience more frequent power outages, or maybe you have something in your home or have a reason why you would need constant power. Maybe you have medical supplies, something like that. So it will vary from household to household if you feel the need to include a battery in your system, but it's definitely an option. And I think battery prices will continue to go down as research progresses. Yep.
So while we're talking about batteries, I'm Sanu Kapoor, I'm with the building department. I just wanted to let you all know that the new codes regarding batteries are very stringent. You are required to have them only in the garage or in the exterior of the house. Or if you put them in the basement, it has to be a fire-rated room. So other than the expense of the batteries that she's talking about, there are other expenses about creating a utility room just for that with a fireproof door that you'll have to consider.
But we do have a solar owner up at the front here, and I know she has a battery, so. Okay. But there'll definitely be plenty of time after the presentation if you want to pick her brain about having a solar system, especially one with a battery. So great, what if you don't have a battery? What happens when you send this excess electricity to the grid? So this all happens through a program called net metering. And essentially how this works is, again, anytime you produce more electricity than you need or than you're currently using, that electricity will be sent back to the grid, where you can later be credited for that exact amount of electricity on your utility bill. So is everyone a ComEd customer here? Okay, so I'll just say ComEd instead of electric utility. So ComEd is actually currently required to offer one-to-one net metering, which means you are charged at the same rate that, or you are credited at the same rate that you are being charged for electricity. It's one-to-one, which is nice, and excess credits can roll over from month to month. So the idea behind it is in the summertime, you're producing a lot of extra electricity and you're storing all of those credits in your credit bank. They're rolling over month to month. And then when the winter time rolls around and we see a lot less sun and you may be producing a lot less electricity, you can still pull from that bank of credits. They can be applied to your bill and continue to bring your bill down each month. These credits do expire annually at the end of April. So again, hopefully you used up all of your credits through the winter and then you don't have much expiring at the end of the year. And then under the standard rate plan, these credits will never completely zero out your bill. And I'll show that on the bill example in the next slide. So I know this is an older ComEd bill. They just, the last couple months, changed the look a little bit, but this should still be pretty accurate as to what the ComEd bill looks like with solar. So at the top of the bill, and I know it might be a little harder for people in the back to see, so I'll try to articulate it the best I can. But at the top, we have the meter information section of the bill. So you have this on your ComEd bill whether or not you have solar. This is where ComEd tells you how much electricity you used from the grid each month. And then when you go solar, they will add an extra line item underneath that will show how much electricity you sent back to the grid. So this person this month, they used 420 kilowatt hours from the grid, but they sent back 600. So they produced an excess of 180 kilowatt hours of credits. And so basically that excess 180 credits will be sent to the next month. And on the ComEd bill, that is stored under the miscellaneous section. So each month you'll be able to see how many credits you have in your credit store or your credit bank. And then for those first 420 credits that they're netting out on the bill, you will see that they're applied under supply, delivery, and taxes and fees at that 1-to-1 rate. And this person is paying around $15 on their bill this month. The reason it's $15 and not $0 is because under the delivery section of the bill, there are 2 fixed fees that are not netted out with solar. And those are the customer charge and the standard metering charge. So those are not netted out. And I will say, I always hate to bring this up because it gets into the weeds, but does anybody have hourly pricing or know what that is? Yeah. Okay, so hourly pricing is a program where rather than paying a fixed rate for your electricity, you would pay the hourly market rate. So any electricity you used at noon, you would pay the noon rate versus 5 p.m., you pay the 5 p.m. rate. And people typically save money on this program. And for some reason, with hourly pricing, you can net out the entire bill. It's just the way that the credits are calculated and the credits work. So that is always a trick I like to tell people. If you are getting solar, you should join hourly pricing because you can take advantage of that and hopefully net out your entire bill. And hourly pricing and solar make sense together because typically rates are a bit higher during the day, and that is when you are producing your own electricity. And on hourly pricing, rates are very low in the middle of the night, and that is when you need ComEd to provide electricity because the sun is not shining and your panels are not producing. So that's kind of a little trick there. Does anyone have any other questions about net metering before we move on? Nope, okay. That's one of the more complicated things when it comes to solar, I would say. So now we can actually talk about what roof makes a good roof for solar, because not every home is necessarily right or ideal for rooftop solar. So it varies from house to house. The absolute most important thing is that your roof receives sunlight, right? Most important hours to get good sun is from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. That's what we call the solar window. So as long as you're getting pretty good sun within those hours, you should be good to go. Usually don't need to worry too much if you have shading, around 5 p.m. or earlier in the morning. Direction of the roof also matters. So a south-facing roof is going to be the most ideal. East and west are still good. But you may require around 10 to 20% more panels to get the same output that a south-facing roof would have gotten. And then a north-facing roof is not ideal unless it's a very low pitch, maybe 5 to 10 degrees. If you have no idea how much sun your roof receives, if you want to take a look, you could use Google Project Sunroof. And you just type in your address and it'll populate an image like the one on the screen. And it's just an easy way to quickly see if your roof gets good solar exposure. I wouldn't use all of the tools on that website. They also do some pricing estimates and things like that. Those aren't necessarily as accurate, but I think the image is useful if you're curious as to how much sun you get. And then there are other things to consider if we do live in the Midwest. So we sometimes get some pretty crazy weather, and solar panels are rated to withstand most of that. So they can withstand the weight of snow coverage. But if your panels are completely covered with snow, it's good to know that they will not produce electricity. But luckily, once the edges of the snow, or the edges of the solar panel, once that snow melts, those small pieces of the solar panels will start to produce electricity, and solar panels heat up slightly when they produce electricity, so that usually helps to melt the rest of the snow off pretty quickly. Hail, they are rated to withstand 1-inch hail going 50 miles per hour, so they're pretty strong. And then wind loadings, sometimes people are concerned that the gap between the roof and the panels could create a wind sail, and it's really only about a 3-inch gap, so that would not happen either, unless of course you had perhaps a tornado blowing by or really strong winds. So rated to withstand most of that. Roof condition is also important to consider. So solar panels are typically warranted for around 25 years and will last even longer than that. So you kind of want your roof to age with your solar panels. So if your roof is close to being needing to be replaced, we usually recommend replacing it before you get the solar panels. And another reason we say that is because say you get your solar panels on and then 5 years down the road you need to replace your roof, you will have to pay the labor fees to take those panels down and then put them back up. And that can sometimes cost around 1/3 of what the original installation cost, because again, you're just paying the labor to take them off and on. So that's a good thing to plan ahead as well. And then squirrels can also wreak havoc on solar panels. If you do have a lot of squirrels in your yard, you may want to talk to your installer about something called a critter guard. It's basically black either mesh or like a plastic lining that closes the gap between your roof and the panels so that nobody can get inside and get at the wires. So that's something to consider as well if you have some critter problems. All right, so now we can get into incentives. So right now, incentives for solar are really good. They can cover around 60% of the total project cost. I'll go through these one by one, but just to step through, we have the state incentive that can cover around 30 to 35% of the project cost. We have the federal tax credit that is set at 30%. And then, of course, utility net metering also helps you to pay your system back faster because you can get, hopefully close to a $15 ComEd bill every month. Might be a little higher in the winters, but that definitely helps to recoup your investment. And then two random things I like to note on this slide. One is that your homeowners association is not allowed to outright block you from going solar. They can create rules or restrictions that make it a little harder, but they can't tell you no for no reason. And I get a lot of questions about insurance, and it really is going to depend on your provider and your policies. So that's something that you can talk to your provider with before if solar panels kind of count as an add-on to the roof, or if you have to change your policy, things like that. That's going to be an individual conversation usually. So now we can talk about the incentives. First is the state incentive, and this is through a program called Illinois Shines. And Illinois Shines was created back in 2016 with the Future Energy Jobs Act, or FEJA, and then it was expanded and re-upped in 2021 with something called the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, otherwise known as CEJA. So in Illinois, FEJA and CEJA are kind of the two big climate bills that we have passed. And through Illinois Shines, you are essentially able to sell your renewable energy credits through this state program and receive that payment for 15 years worth of renewable energy credits up front. So to explain that a little better, first I like to define a renewable energy credit. What is that? So anytime a renewable energy facility, aka a solar system, produces 1,000 kilowatt hours of electricity, that is equal to one renewable energy credit. And we call them SRECs for solar, renewable energy credits specifically. So 1,000 kilowatt hours is one REC. So when you get your panels put on your roof, your installer or a third party that they work with will estimate the amount of SRECs that your system will produce over the course of 15 years. And they will then multiply that by the dollar amount of the REC. So say your system will produce 100 RECs, and the RECs are worth $80 each. That'll be if I'm doing my math right, $8,000 credit that you'll get back. So it's a really good incentive, and it usually accounts for around 30% of the total cost of the system. A couple of things to note. SRECs are considered taxable income, and they typically have a processing fee. I take a lot of calls at CUB from people who are a little weary or confused about their SREC contract, so that's definitely something normal. So if you ever have any questions, you can always call CUB and we can talk you through it. And you will usually get your SREC in the form of a check around 6 to 12 months after your system is installed. So again, pretty sizable credit there, around 30%. And then we have the federal tax credit. This is set at 30% thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act that passed in 2022. This includes labor, system installation, interconnection, wiring, and batteries. So if you did want a battery, you could get 30% back through this tax credit, which is pretty good. And the home must be owned by the taxpayer, but it does not need to serve as your principal residence. And this is a non-refundable tax credit. So essentially, if the tax credit is, or if you do not have a tax liability, this credit would not be useful to you, because how it works is it reduces what you owe on your federal income taxes. Say the credit is worth more than what you owe in 1 year, you are able to roll it over to the next, and you can continue to do that for as long as the credit is available. So right now we'll have that 30% tax credit until 2032. So you'd basically have quite a few years to roll it over if you needed to. And then for a little bit of kind of back of the napkin math here, just to show how these incentives may affect the price of the system. I have a system with the starting price of just under $23,000, which I would say is pretty typical for maybe a starting price here in Illinois for an average size system. So we get our Illinois SREC, which I set at around 33%, so that knocks off $7,500, and then our tax credit set at 30% knocks off another $6,800, and now you're closer to $8,500 rather than $23,000. So you can see these credits do a lot of work and definitely make solar a lot more possible for people. Typically here in Illinois, we see a payback period ranging from maybe 5 to 8 or 9 years. And that really just depends on how you choose to finance the project and, how unique your system was. Sometimes systems will cost a little more than others, depending on various circumstances. And then another thing I like to note is, you don't get your federal incentive back until tax season, and again, the SREC check usually takes around 6 to 12 months to receive. So although the system in the end may cost $8,000, you owe that $22,000 up front. So a lot of times people will get a bridge loan to cover the cost until they get those incentives back. But still, pretty nice for sure. So now we could talk about the different options when going solar. So we'll start with rooftop solar, and then I will move to a program called community solar, and we will finish with an income eligible solar program here in Illinois. So first we have the rooftop solar, and I like to talk about leasing versus owning and what that means. So throughout this whole presentation, I've kind of been talking about going solar in the context of owning the system. And what that means is you would be responsible for the upfront costs. You'd be the owner of the system, but you would also be the one to receive those federal and state incentives. So that is one way to go solar, is by purchasing the system outright. But there are two other ways to go solar. There is leasing the system, and there is a power purchase agreement. So with a lease, you would essentially be renting the panels from an installation company. So how that would work is they would put the panels on your home, they would remain the owner of the panels, and they would get the incentives. You would still get the electricity and the net metering, and then you would have to pay a fixed monthly fee back to that company that's owning the panels, because again, you're essentially renting them. And then there's a power purchase agreement, which is very similar to a lease, but rather than a fixed monthly payment, you are paying a price per kilowatt hour on the electricity that the panels produced. So your payment would vary month to month, depending on how much electricity your panels produced. So these are all good options, but there are some things to consider and be aware of. So one is companies that offer leases and PPAs are allowed to include up to a 2.9% annual cost escalator. So what may have started out as a good deal at the beginning could be not so good of a deal at the end of a, say, 20-year lease. So it's good to check for those cost escalators. Another thing, checking the contract, what happens if you move. Sometimes lease or PPA contracts can make transferring the contract a little difficult, so that's good to note. And then in general, leases and PPAs, along with ownership, nothing is guaranteed to be a good deal. So at CUB, we really want to drive home that it is important to look for maybe 3 to 4 quotes, make sure you're comparing installers, and never sign a lease or PPA without first exploring your ownership options, because again, it may actually pencil out better than a lease or a PPA, even though you are taking care of those upfront costs. So it's important to do your research, and again, CUB has a great hotline, so please utilize it. If you're ever a little confused or wary of an offer that you have received, we can definitely take a look and at least let you know what else we've been seeing in the market and tell you how your offer compares to what else we've seen. So there is also a really wonderful program called Community Solar. So this is a great program for people who cannot or would rather not put solar panels on their roof. So it's really great for renters or condo owners, or just people with shaded roofs. Maybe you really want solar and you go home and remember that you're in the forest and you can't do it. Then Community Solar is great for you. And it essentially allows you to subscribe to a small portion of a large community solar farm. So there are around a dozen companies in Illinois building or managing these community solar farms, and they're all over the state, and you are allowed to subscribe to a farm as long as it is in your utility territory. So we can see ComEd up here. Even if it's 50 miles away, you can still subscribe to it, and that is because that farm is connected to ComEd's grid, which is the same grid that you are receiving your electricity from. So I'm not saying those renewable electrons will be routed straight to your home, but again, it's going onto the same grid that you pull from. So with community solar, you essentially pay the community solar company for any electricity produced by your subscription rather than paying ComEd for it. And it can sometimes be a little tricky to navigate the billing process for community solar, so I like to show this billing example. So here we have another ComEd bill, and for rooftop solar, if you remember, they just add a line item under the meter information section, but with community solar, they actually add an entirely new section called Renewable Community Supply Details. So it's the one highlighted and in the red box with the arrow. And that section includes the name/location of your project, the phone number to the company in case you have any questions or concerns, how much your subscription generated, and what that equals out to in terms of a credit. So then you can see under the supply portion of the bill, that credit would be applied. So again, this example, it produced around $14 worth of electricity. So rather than paying ComEd that $14, you're going to pay the community solar company. But most community solar companies in Illinois actually offer some kind of discount, usually either 10 or 20%. So say you saved, and this is just, I'm doing this for really, really easy math. Say you saved $100 on your ComEd bill and you had a community solar plan that offered a 20% discount. You would save $100 and then you would pay the community solar company $80. So community solar typically doesn't come with huge savings, but again, it's a really nice way to support renewable energy in the state while also getting a discount on your bill. Community solar can be a little hard to navigate because there are a lot of companies out there. So CUB actually maintains a website called solarinthecommunity.com. You can find it under our resources tab as well if you go to the website. And we have kind of an informational page about community solar in general, but what a lot of people like is this comparison chart. So we actually do list all of the companies side by side. We tell you what their discount rate is, where they operate, do they require a credit check, what their billing looks like. Some of these companies do require auto pay. Some people hate that, some people love it. So, depending on the person, these companies may or may not be for you. And so if you go to the website, you can get that full chart, because this is just part of the chart, I believe. And then we have blog posts about each of the companies as well. So good resource. And we're almost done here. I also would love to talk about Illinois Solar for All. So this is the sister program to Illinois Shines. It's a state-run program that provides incentives for solar to income-eligible households. And there's also a subcategory for nonprofits and public facilities that are within income-eligible or environmental justice zones. So this is a great way to go solar. There are guaranteed monthly savings and no upfront costs. And the eligibility is you must be at or below 80% area median income, and that will depend on household size and region. So for a family of 4, that would be around $83,000 or less. So I do encourage, if you think you would qualify or you think someone you know would qualify, you should definitely look at the website at illinoissfa.com. And I also have a little exit ticket QR code up on the screen. So if you scanned that, it would take you to a website where you could fill out your information and someone from the program could reach out to you. This program is definitely slower. So like the day you sign up, it'll probably take around a year for you to actually have solar panels on your roof. And that is just because it is a state program with lots of consumer protections involved, dealing with income verification, things like that. So I do like to warn people that it's definitely kind of a slow process, but again, a really good deal if you do qualify. All right, and one other thing I like to mention is energy efficiency and the importance of making sure that your home is energy efficient before going solar, right? It doesn't really make sense to put a huge solar system on a really inefficient home. It makes more sense to try to get your home as efficient as you can, and you can save some money on getting a smaller solar system. So on the screen are some ways that you could increase the efficiency of your home, and then ComEd.com/ways to save also has some resources. There are rebates for energy efficient appliances and HVAC tune-up services, and you can find out more about their free home energy assessment program at the Ways to Save tab as well. So would recommend thinking about energy efficiency a little bit before going solar. Another thing I like to note is if you are planning on getting an electric vehicle or electrifying some appliances in your home in the near future, that is something that you could talk to your solar installer about, and they could slightly oversize your system in order to make sure that the system will meet your future needs. So say you're getting solar this summer, but you want an EV 3 years from now, they can make it a little bigger to make sure that you can still use that electricity on the car. And then how to find an installer. I do have a resource on the back table that lists some websites you can check out, and on the back it has different questions that you can ask your installer. But for the most part, again, it's good to get 3 to 4 solar quotes from different installers. I really like the Illinois Solar Education Association's residential installers directory. That's just illinoissolar.org. And you can go to that directory and find some of their vetted installers. NABCEP is the industry standard for solar installers, so they also maintain a list. And then Illinois Shines is just a wonderful resource as well. Again, they're the ones that provide the SREC incentive. But another thing they do is if you go to their website, they have an entire consumer protections tab. and you can actually go through, peruse it, and see every complaint that has ever been made against a solar installer to the state. And it's a pretty big list, so you can download the Excel sheet and kind of Control F and see how many times the installer you're talking to shows up, which I think is helpful. Or again, if you call CUB and you mention solar, more often than not, you will be routed to me, and I can Control F for you and see how many complaints have been made. So again, a really nice resource. They also just include other information about protections that you can receive from the state were something to go wrong. And then my very final slide is Citizens Utility Board actually each year partners up with another nonprofit called the Midwest Renewable Energy Association to offer a solar group buy program to Chicagoland residents. So essentially with this program, you would go to the website at the bottom, register, you fill out your information and some information about your roof, and you would end up getting a solar proposal from one of our program vetted installers. And the benefits from going solar through this program is CUB is a part of it, and we do really care about consumer protection, so we make sure to vet high quality installers. The price is most likely going to be better than the market price, because the beauty of a solar group buy program is that we are using bulk purchasing power to secure a lower price. And education is really important, so we do offer basically what you just attended, a solar power hour, to make sure that people going through the program are well aware of how solar works and what to expect. So yeah, definitely a great program, solarswitch.com/Chicagoland, and I know a couple people in the crowd have either gone through the program or are about to, so we can definitely chat afterwards about that as well. And I think I will leave this slide up. That has my email. We have the CUB hotline on the screen. And then again, that QR code is just for the Solar for All exit ticket. So in case you are interested or want to be contacted about that program, you could scan it and fill that form out. But yeah, that is all I have. And I think we have some time for questions if people have them.
Can I,
Oh yeah, yep. And if you want to do some permit talk, yeah. I don't know anything about Hoffman Estates permitting. So.
Hello everyone, I'm Sanya Kapoor. I'm the Chief Building Official with Village of Hoffman Estates. So as you're aware, for all of the solar installation, you would need a building permit. We have all the information available on the Village website. If you go to the Village website and look under building permits, we also have handouts that refer you to the exact documents that we would need. It is all online, so you would need to upload PDFs of your permit documents. The documents that we look for, you will need to discuss in detail with the solar installer that you are planning to go with. You will need an Illinois licensed professional design engineer to do the design drawings for you. You will need the electrical wiring diagram. One main thing to remember is you would need to have a structural analysis of your roof. It's extremely important because you're adding load to your roof with these solar panels. You want to make sure your roof framing is adequate to support that. So you will need an Illinois licensed structural engineer to evaluate your roof, and most of the solar installers know about this requirement. Then we would also request that you provide us photos of your electrical panel, your main electrical panel, as well as your electrical meter. The reason being is some of the houses, the solar installer looks into the design of the solar installation, but does not verify whether your main service panel has enough breakers to accommodate the electrical requirements. You need 40 amps, or if your meter fitting that's on the comment side is the right size. So we would analyze that, so we would need that information from you. I've also printed these handouts here. You are welcome to use them from the resource table. Marina already mentioned the roof system. So you have to keep in mind the solar panels have a longevity 25 to 30 years, and your roofing may, if it's almost 8 to 10 years, it may need to be replaced, and those are additional costs. So we would definitely recommend, and one of our conditions is that you have a newer roofing installation before you come in for a solar panel installation. All the requirements for how to select a solar panel were in the handouts and in this website, but we also look for something known as the Distributed Generation Certificate that is provided through Illinois Commerce Commission. Make sure your solar installer has the certification. I think these were the main points regarding permit. I have my business cards here. If you have any questions regarding installations, costs, feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.
Great. So do we have any questions? Okay.
Yes. I had signed up for a provider on the community program. I had my return from him, which was June of the year. How long does it take to get on the community program? Or what is your experience?
Yeah, so for community solar, there was at one point wait lists were quite long, and they have definitely come down. So I feel like if you signed up within the last few months, I think it would take 1 to 3 months to get onto the system. Some community solar providers I know have been really backed up, so if you're on one of those, it may take longer. So I would recommend, or I guess I don't know if I know this is filmed, which I'll come to talk to you after, but I would say some community solar companies have really long wait lists, closer to 6 to 9 months. And if you're on one of those, I would kind of recommend just going and signing up for a different one.
You can sign up for more than one.
Yes, you can. But even if you signed up for 2 and then one of them puts you onto their system first, you could always go and cancel with the other one if you wanted. Yep. Great, and we can talk more after too if it's a specific company.
In Germany, part of the reason that they are heavily solar is that the roof shingles themselves are solar. And they don't do that here. Have you ever heard of, is there any thought of that?
So Tesla has a model of solar shingles right now that are becoming a bit more popular in California. They haven't quite made their way over to the Midwest yet. I believe there's something, I don't think they meet Illinois fire code because we require like rapid shutdown codes that those shingles cannot do because it's so many individual modules. And I've talked to some solar installers before, and in order to install that product, they need to become a certified installer, and I just don't think there's interest yet. But I think as maybe technology advances and the prices come down, we might see more of the shingles. And again, they definitely are happening in California, I think. But yeah, it's a good question.
An answer to that question also is the technology hasn't caught up, so the return on investment is not there yet. Secondly, Illinois, there's a lot of union regulations they'll have to follow to be able to put these on. Then they have to join a different union for it, the combination between the two. Carpenters Union has got some strong programs in place to be able to do that because most of the solar work going on now does fall under the Carpenters Union. But the return on investment for the shingles just isn't here yet. In Germany, they're paying a lot more higher prices for the energy that they have. And lastly, the duration of those type of shingles are nowhere near what we get with the panels now. So.
Thank you. Yeah.
We're talking about roof-mounted systems, but how about a standalone system on the property? Is that something that's available?
Yes, you can definitely do what we call a ground-mounted system as well. So it would usually require some trenching to make sure the solar panels stay in the ground, and then you'd have to run the conduit back to the home. So that can add a bit of cost. But again, if your roof isn't able to hold those panels or it's facing the wrong direction or whatever, then a ground-mounted system can be a great option, especially if you have the space for it in your yard.
So to be able to be eligible for the credits, does it need to be returned back to the grid, or can it just go to a battery system? So my example would be heating a pool and hot tub. and then just maintaining that system for it with the battery to take care of that. Would the credit still be available?
So you could get the federal tax credit, but if it doesn't go back to the grid, then you could not get the state renewable energy credits, because I guess they would have no way to track it, and part of the reason that they pay people to go solar is so that Illinois can also work to meet its renewable energy goals. But definitely you could get the federal incentive, and that's a good idea. All right, sounds good. Well, again, thank you everyone for joining me on this Saturday by Earth Day.